urging the administration to pay city road services between 5/1 and 10/1 and/or during comfortable climatic conditions.
Leader.
Mr. President, I move we adopt informal resolution number 43.
Second. There's a motion to adopt informal resolution number 43. By rule. Any remarks?
Mr. President,
Member Schmuckler.
I think we've all learned, especially a lesson this year, that the cold, the wet, the remarks by Central Allied about this isn't the optimum time to be paving. I understand that things were uncovered and we had to take care of it this year, but I hope we never do this again. I understand that from the law director, there's no penalty I can pass down here short of urging you to do this, but I do hope that you respect the wishes of this body and the bodies in the past that have said to you, this shouldn't be done, this is late in the year. And I think that the future is that the roads that we did do probably won't hold up. But we're stuck with the way they are at this point in time. And I hope this passes, and I hope that in the future we don't do anything after when it starts to become cold, and it usually does after October 1st.
Mr. President.
Member Hall.
Thank you. This is something we really need to consider and take into account. The streets aren't getting paved properly. I had a comment from one of the repository columnists who called me and said it looked like when they did 12th Street, it looks like they put it down with black magic marker. That's how thin it was. It came up within a couple of weeks. We're just not doing it right. And there's something we need to, we need to do better inspections before we pay the bill. We need to take a better look at the quality of material we're getting, to make sure we're getting paid for under contract. And I, for one, will no longer vote for nor support any piece of legislation or any paving contract that comes down here that does not have a completion date on it prior to these dates we've outlined in this product. I may be the only one voting against it, but I assure you I will not support one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Law Director, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I'm confused as to why this came down as an informal resolution rather than an ordinance mandating that the paving be done between specific dates. Now, it's my understanding that council does not have the right to negotiate contracts, but this council has the authority to pass legislation such as local preference law, mandating local preferences and opening that. So this council does have the authority to pass ordinances that directly affect the way the contracts are written. So could you please give us an explanation as to why we were not given that right this time?
Mr. President, members of council, when presented with the question of how to encourage the administration to stay within certain deadlines for paving, I engaged in some conversations. And as you all know, council predominantly passes ordinances. Most of them are what we call formal ordinances or resolutions that don't end up in your codified ordinances, which become permanent law. You have some ordinances that do go into the green book and become permanent law. The reason I didn't think those would succeed is there really is no sanction that council can enforce other than the power of the purse. We all remember from civics lessons there are three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. As long as the legislature is within its scope passing legislation, it is fine, and it can request things of the administration, you can approve certain projects and not others. In that sense, that's what I meant by the power of the purse. But in terms of what you said earlier, council cannot engage in the administration of the city. It cannot engage in negotiating contracts or the penalties therein. So, again, gauging what I was being requested, we did some research and found that those are the best months to pave. It can go outside those limits if the conditions are optimal in terms of the temperature of the mix, how soon it gets to the street, how soon it's compacted, and so on and so on. But warmer is better. This, though, this method of an informal resolution is a way for council to have its collective intent voiced. Your collective wishes can be voiced. And you can choose to do this by roll call vote if you so please. But it gets in the record, on writing, a very clear desire that council has, and a very clear desire in writing that can be referred to. And I understand that it's also led to some discussions with the administration about preparing the bid specs sooner, getting some contracts in, and so on and so on, which has been healthy. So in that sense, Mr. President, I think it's had its intended effect.
Okay, so let me see if I can clarify this. We got this down as an informal resolution because this council has no means of enforcing it if the administration opted not to do it. Sort of like mowing grass, loud music. We can pass the ordinance, but that's what you're saying is we had no means to, there was no ramifications if they stepped outside that scope?
Mr. President, I heard you say as a quip recently, this council is expert or beautiful at passing great legislation.
And terrible at enforcing it?
But it's not your job to, and you're right. Enforcement is part of the administrative branch of government. And again, the hope is this leads to a healthy dialogue that includes financial support for such things.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Member Schwaber.
leading along the lines of what Mr. Hawk said, Law Director, if we require in the contract a date, a drop dead date, is that possible to do when we're asked to pass the monetary version of it?
Mr. President, Member Smuckler, it's yes, you can certainly request that. The administration can try to negotiate into the contract a date beyond which liquidated damages are authorized. They've done that in other contracts that we've approved as a form, and I think they have one in this as well.
So the proper form of what you're suggesting would be to put that into the contract and to deal with it that way.
Mr. President, members, yes, definitely. And Mr. Bartos is, again, fortunately, becoming a veteran at these and an attorney and works very closely with us in terms of designing the sanctions and so on.
Mr. President, and just for the sake of clarity here, I think I would like to ask for a roll call vote on this.
Okay, well, we'll hold that. Member Doherty?
I guess I'm still a little confused from the law director that council can't bring an ordinance down here, make it law, and have it happen. I don't understand that. I'm not asking for an informal resolution. I'm asking for sponsors on an ordinance that lays this out. We're legislators, correct? And we can sponsor legislation. And you just told us in 5 minutes that we're not a strong council. You're informing me that I'm a weak council.
Mr. President, Member Doherty, I think I used the power of the purse a few times in my explanation, which makes you strong. You control the taxpayers' money.
So, Mr. President, so we don't give them any money to pay streets. That's power of the purse. I don't get it, because Member Hawk already said he's not going to do it. So that doesn't get anything done. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Mr. President, Member Doherty, again, given the fact that there is no sanction that council can impose, the person who I primarily spoke with in designing the resolution expressed a desire to have the intent of council put in writing. It was my suggestion that it be done by resolution. It's faster, and again, it can result in no sanction.
Mr. President, I'm talking about an ordinance. Bringing in an ordinance now sponsored by council to make this happen. You're telling me we can't do that. And I don't get it.
Mr. President, Member Doherty, what I'm telling you is that I was asked for you to have something in writing that lets the administration know your desires, and that's what's before you.
Mr. President, point of order. I sent a communication upstairs that was very clear. I asked for an ordinance. You called me back and said there was no penalty based on that we could offer for an ordinance, and that the best way to go for this would be a resolution because of the penalty clause, and that's what you told me. Now, did I misunderstand you?
Yes.
Mr. President, no, I stand by that. I suggested this would be the quickest way to get your collective intent on record, and that if you wanted to, you could have a roll call vote to make it even clearer.
Mr. President, remember that a roll call vote doesn't make it any clearer. It's just council as a whole. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, Director, I'm gonna go with members Doherty and Schmuckler. For the life of me, I cannot put my hands around this, thinking that we cannot pass an ordinance stating that Service Director has between April and August to pave streets. No contract will be honored by council outside of those boundaries. This is your window of opportunity. Now, I understand that we have no way to enforce it, but an informal resolution signed on a roll call by each and every one of us tonight doesn't mean anything 6 years when we're not sitting here. Because nobody's going to remember that the council in 2014 unanimously voted in favor of an informal resolution, to quote one of my esteemed colleagues, that isn't worth the paper it's wrote on. So I personally would like to hold this or postpone it indefinitely, and I would like to see the request for a ordinance come down for this council. Well, Director.
If that's what it's the wish of council, then that's what I'll write. But again, it won't contain anything that is a sanction. And the research that we've done has shown that there can be effective paving done, again, depending on the climatic conditions, the temperature, the humidity, the temperature, and so on and so on. If you wish a ordinance to say essentially what the resolution says, then you can say so, and that's what we've got. Again, without interfering with the administration or the administration.
All right, Councilmember Hart.
Yeah, it was once said that insanity is when you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you look at what science is saying, that severe weather is going to be the norm, coming up with climate change, and I don't want to get into the politics, that's involved with that. And it's nothing to do with any administration. Things are changing. And I guess what I find amazing is that we'll keep doing the same thing. We'll keep asphalting. And when Raft Road was done, I looked, the bricks were in good shape. There was even rows of white brick going up in between using the lines. And again, we paved that over, and I bet you in another, 5 or 10 years, it'll be stripped off and repaved again, stripped off and be repaved again. And I think just what's cost effective for the taxpayers and to keep throwing the money away with asphalt.
Mr. President, Member Doherty. This way doesn't work. It's already been proven. We've done this before with